We have here now the love, I call it unusual love, our last session. It's the session that I tried to bring to you how I loved Mrs. Williams and how I do love her all of these years, an unusual love. And let's look at the book of Ephesians, please, the book of Ephesians. Now, ladies, this is your session. You may have hated me for all the others, but now you're going to like me. That's really why I save it till last, so I can end on a note where you're not mad at me anymore, see. And what you want to do, if your husband is here, get right over, right next to him. Sharpen up your elbow real good. And by the time I get through, his ribs ought to be so tender. So tender. And by the way, ladies, on the subject of submission, I can tell you how to have a closet full of new dresses all the time. I can tell you how to have microwaves, toaster ovens, new vacuums. Just anything your little old heart desires. I can tell you how to have that just slick as easy. I'm telling you. You just do what Sarah did. You just do what Sarah did. She called Abraham Lord. You just bring his shoes into the living room and get him to sit down real good. Get his favorite little book, magazine, or turn on his favorite program or something. And then you just get down on your knees and say, would you care for anything else, Lord? And then just come back in a while and say, now, Lord, you sure there's anything you need? And I'll tell you, it won't be long till your closet won't hold the dresses. And he'll bring home something every week or two. It just, but here we are, unusual love. Now, ladies, take your pen out. I want you to underline a little phrase. Every time I say it, underline it, okay? Every time I say it, underline it. We'll begin in verse 23. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as. Underline the little word, even as. Verse 25, husbands, love your wife, even as. Even as. Underline that little phrase, even as. Verse 29, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. Drop down to verse 31. Nevertheless, let everyone in particular so love his wife, even as himself. Do you know what that little word even as means in the original? Let me tell you what it means. It means exactly what I'm going to tell you. It means even as. In other words, it means whatever the man does for himself, he immediately does for his wife. Whatever a man does for himself, he immediately does for his wife. That means, sir, if you go in front of the mirror and you look and comb your hair and brush it back real good and look and say, that means you go in, you get your wife, you brush her hair, you look at her and say, yeah. Just like you love and cherish your body, you love and cherish her body. Whatever you feed your body, you feed her body. You don't buy steak and buy her Vienna sausage in a can. See? You don't go down to work and eat steak while she's home eating pork and beans. You don't do that. You do even as. You know what that means, ladies? Get a hold of this now, ladies. You're going to like this. That means if he goes down here and spends $150 on a new shotgun, he brings $150 in greenbacks and puts in your hand and says, help yourself. Help yourself. That's exactly what it says. I mean, exactly what it says. Right there. Right there. That means if he goes down here and goes hunting and it costs him $150 to go hunting, he brings $150, puts it in your hand and says, have yourself a time. If he spends $15 on a fishing license, he brings you $15 and said, I got me something, you get you something. That means if he goes out and spends $500 on a lawnmower, then he brings you $500 and says, I got something to clean up the outside, you get something to help you on the inside. That means he never does one single thing for himself. Isn't it amazing, ladies, how a man can go down and spend $150, $200 on a suit, Don't think a thing about it. And if you bought a $200 dress, he'd die right where he stands. No, sir. That means you go down and you just give your wife two $100 bills and say, just help yourself. Now, I like to hunt. And I've hunted big game several times. God has provided that for me by different means, businessmen taking me and so on. But, you know, every time I've gone hunting, whatever it costs, if it costs $1,000, I don't go till I can save up $1,000. And I bring 10 $100 bills, put them in my wife's hand and say, while I'm gone, just invade the shopping center. Just blow their mind down there. Just have yourself a time. If I go down and spend $200 for something, I bring her two $100 bills, cold green cash. And I say, here it is. Do what you want to with it. I did what I wanted to with it. Yeah. You know, we've been married 26 years, nearly 27. And my wife has never complained once about me going hunting. Not once. In fact, 2 or 3 times a year, she usually comes and say, ain't about time to go hunting again. You know. That's exactly what it means. That means if you go down here and you buy you a $10,000 four-wheel vehicle so you can split mud, you just go get her $10,000 cash and put it in her hand and say, now, just help yourself. Just help yourself. I got me a toy, you get you one. That's exactly what it means. It does not mean one other thing other than that. You do for her what you do for you. I taught my children that. I told my son-in-laws, I said, boys, you're getting the 2 finest girls in the world. These girls have been taught submission. They'll kiss your toe if you tell them to. That they won't ask you why you bought this, why you bought that. You bring a brand new car home, brand new pickup home, spend the last penny you got, and all she'll do is just say, let's go for a ride. She won't ask you where you got it. She won't ask you how much you paid for it. She won't ask you, why did you spend the money? I said, they've been taught that, boys. I said, I'll tell you something, fellas. They used to a bucket of love. They used to a lot of love. And I said, fellas, they've seen their mama and they raised that whatever you do for you, you do for them. My youngest daughter hadn't been married very long, and my son-in-law likes to hunt. He went out deer hunting. He got him a nice new tree stand, you know, $65 metal one. And he brought $65 over and put it in Penny's hand. She called me up. She said, it's working, Dad. She said, I hope he gets on one of them big hunts pretty soon. Yeah, amen. That's right. That's what it means. Got a kick out of my youngest son. He loves computers. He just got the fever one night. Went down and bought one, $1,193. He told me the other day, he said, Dad, I believe about everything you say, but he said, I'm telling you one thing. I'm just now getting Jeannie paid off on that computer. He said, man, that's tough buying 2 of them dudes. I said, yeah, that makes you think real hard before you buy one of them. You know. Yeah, and old little Jeannie, she said, I love it, Dad. I love it. $1,193 just to blow. Yeah. Yes, sir. That'll work. See, that's the home God planned. Can you think of anything any more fair? Why not? No, because that's what God planned, see. Yeah. That's what God said. Husbands, notice verse 29 for 25. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. I told Brother Booth last night, I said, Brother Booth, here's one of the most misinterpreted verses in the Bible. I said, preachers think that says that they're to love the church like Christ loved the church. That's not what it says, folks. It doesn't say you're to love the bus route like Christ loved the church. It doesn't say you're to love soul winning like Christ. It says you're to love your wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Did you know there's women today driving Mercedes and living in $200,000 homes that are miserable? You know why? Because they don't have him. When I was living in Denver, there was a man, and his company raised him to $100,000 a year. And literally, before God, this is what they told him. They said, all right, we're going to raise your salary to $100,000 a year. That means your wife can have any kind of car she wants, any kind of house she wants. She can shop wherever she wants to shop. But make her aware of this. She will not have you. We own you. Man has to be a fool to take a salary like that. Listen, God said you love your wife and give yourself for her. Notice how much you're to give yourself. He said in verse 27, He loved the church so much it wasn't going to spot or wrinkle. He loved the church so much it wasn't going to spot or wrinkle. Sir, you're to love your wife. So ought men to love their wives. How they ought to love them? Just like Christ loves the church. How much Christ loves the church? He loves it so much He don't let it spot or wrinkle. You know how to keep your wife from spotting and wrinkling? You learn to do dishes. Don't you like that, ladies? I knew you'd like that. Your husband learns to do dishes. Yeah. They say joy makes dishwashing fun. I don't know. I never was married to Joy, but I know Pam does. Man, she wash them, I dry. She put one over in the sink, and I reach down there and get her hand, play with it. Sometimes take 3 or 4 hours to do 2 dishes. You know. Yeah. Listen. Do you know it's more scriptural for a man to do dishes than it is a woman? Read it, 2 Kings chapter 23. God says, as a man wipeth a dish and turneth it upside down, even so will I wipe Jerusalem. Didn't say anything about a woman. It says, as a man wipeth a dish. There you are, ladies. Hang that in front of your sink. That means you learn to vacuum. You know, that thing will fit your hand, and you can learn to pull back and forth like this. That ain't too tough. Yeah. That means you learn to cook. It ain't sissy to cook. If you think it is, go over there and tell those Marines that cook that. And I'll see you in heaven. Some preachers that I know in fundamental circles get up and rant and rave and say, don't let your boys make beds, they'll be sissies. They make their beds every day. You ain't getting me to call these soldier boys sissies. They make their beds every day. Preachers sometimes say the craziest thing. One preacher got up one day and said, oh, bless God, I tell you, you wear them bell-bottom breeches, you ain't nothing but a hippie. I went up to him after service and I said, Pastor, I said, do you realize what you said? Yeah, he said, I do. I said, do you realize that you just called every sailor boy that died for you in Pearl Harbor a hippie and a sissy? I said, preacher, bell-bottom breeches didn't come in with the hippies. Sailor boys have been wearing them for years. He said, oh, my soul, why'd I ever say a fool thing like that? You know, it don't hurt you to cook, sir. It won't hurt you to cook. It won't hurt you to do dishes. It won't hurt you to vacuum. It won't even kill you to change a dirty diaper. And not just change it and wad it up. It won't even hurt you to wash it out. You don't need to leave it for your wife. She already knows how. You ever see a man wash a dirty diaper? It is. Now, a woman, she just gets down in there with it, you know. But man acts like he's going to buy, you know. It won't hurt you. It won't hurt you to change diapers. It won't hurt you to get the kids ready for bed. Some of you guys sit in the living room like you King Tut. Your wife has to go and put all the kids to bed and pray with them and everything else. Feed them, bathe them, get them up Sunday morning, get 4 kids and they're self-dressed, and you sitting out there on the horn. Why don't you dress 4 kids and yourself and see who'll be beeping the horn? Huh? It won't hurt you. It won't hurt you none. Well, I'm the big man. Yeah. You got hair on your arm that makes you think you're Tarzan. You know. Listen. It won't hurt you. You to so treat your wife that she don't spot a wrinkle. Say, well, my wife's looking old. No wonder. No wonder. Man, you ain't even half smart. Listen, I tell you what, you get your wife taken in the living room Saturday. Make sure she's comfy, you know. Bring her some lemonade or whatever her favorite drink is, you know, Coke or Diet Pepsi or whatever. And bring it in there and just see that she's comfortable. Get her a nice little book she's been reading and on, you know, and just see that she's comfortable. Get in the kitchen, cook supper, get all the kids and bathe them, get them all around the table, and then go get her and bring her up and seat her, kiss her behind the left ear, and then unseat her after she gets through eating and kiss her behind the right ear, and then take her back in the living room, put her in a chair, and then get in the kitchen, do the dishes, put all the kids to bed, clean up the kitchen real nice, maybe scrub around the burners a little bit, you know, and just get it all shined up real good, put the dish rag away, and all the drying towels, and get everything done. And you know, about 9:30, say, let's go to bed. Man, you talk about dividends. I mean, Sears ain't got no kind of plan about dividends like that. Yeah, I mean, that'll just pay dividends. That'll just pay dividends, man. You know, some of you guys wonder why your wife goes in the bedroom like a limp rag. I'll tell you why. She's so tired, she's cross-eyed. You know, and you sat in the living room, watched 2 hours of TV and everything and done nothing. Then you wonder why she ain't hopping from bed to bed and saying, come on, follow me. You know. Listen, you need to learn to cook. You need to learn to do dishes. You need to learn to scrub floors. You need to learn to change diapers. Yeah, you need to learn to go grocery shopping. Yeah, them carts get heavy. You push it. Always amazes me how a guy can walk 12 miles looking for a deer and 3 blocks in a shopping center and he's so tired he can't move. You know, you go out here and stand under a tree for 4 hours and almost breathless, just freeze like you paw the tree, hoping a deer won't see you. She won't stand in front of a window in a shopping center and gaze from in. You say, good night, you're going to spend all day here? You know, you just need to put the emphasis in the right place. That deer can't cook, brother. Yeah, and you don't smell good enough to sleep with. So, you know, I mean, you need to get the emphasis where they belong. You see, I tell you the truth. When Miss Williams got sick, it wasn't any big deal to me as far as shopping and cooking and keeping house. I can keep house as good as any woman in this building. I know how to scrub around the tubs and down where the shower door goes. And I know how to lift out the burners and put in new foil, you know, and scrub all in there. And I know how to do the oven. And I can cook. Man, I can cook. I had to teach every one of these young ladies that's come to help me over the last 5 years how to cook. I went down one morning on Thanksgiving morning. I said, we're going to have turkey now. And I told her. And she'd get the turkey out and fixing it. I went down and I said, you clean out both ends? She said, oh, bro, you the biggest jokester in town. I said, you know they don't put stuff in both ends of a turkey. I said, oh, yeah. And I went around and opened up his neck, and there's all them giblets. She about to stick him in the oven, paper and all, you know. But you know, let me tell you something. Listen, I didn't have to, you know. And I'd always bought all of her clothes. And I'd always bought all of her shoes. And she had compliments all over the nation, being the best dressed woman they'd ever seen. And you know, I didn't have to get used to any of that. None of that was a shock to me. The shock was I didn't have a wife anymore. But it wasn't a shock for us. Those things went. I mean, we just went right on. I just went to cooking and cleaning and washing. And we made it fine that way. But every one of you fellas here, you ought to have in your wallet the sizes that your wife wears from skin out. And you ought to bring her something all the time. It don't need to be her birthday. It don't need to be anniversary. It just be old wash day Monday. Man, I tell you, you'd be surprised what a new negligee will do for a wash day Monday, girl. Yeah. And you just bring it home. Yeah. And you know, you say, but preacher, my wife won't wear those things. Well, lady, you need to get in gear. You just need to get in gear and start wearing them. You say, I don't think I look good in them. You ain't the one seeing it. You got to realize he don't see what you see. He don't see what you see. In fact, he goes about half blind. Anyway, Don't see much of anything. And you need to realize that. You need to understand that. You need to understand that. Listen, you know what my prescription for ladies, Christian ladies in the 1980s is? Now, you can think I'm as evil as you want to think, but I'm going to tell you, you better be a lamb on the street and a lioness in your bedroom. Let me tell you something, ladies. Like it, don't like it, you can't change it. We don't live in Grandpa's day. I can pick up a J.C. Penney catalog and see more of a naked woman in it now than my daddy could pay to see in a sideshow. You better learn something. You better learn something. Your husband is faced with temptation that no other generation of men's ever been faced with. You better understand that. And God gave you all the equipment to thrill him as much as anybody can if you'll just use it. If you'll just use it. And you know, men, your bedroom ought to cost twice as much as any room of your house. Some men say, my wife just won't wear a negligee. I say, yeah, I don't blame her. You know, ain't no woman feels sexy with a chill on, you know. She put on a negligee and stand around like this, you know. Your bedroom ought to be the most perfectly heated, perfectly cooled room in your house. You can't get a woman to make love in the summertime if she's sweating like a hog. Like a hog would like to sweat anyway. Hogs don't sweat. I know that. I was raised on a farm. But they sure would like to sweat. That's why they get in the mud all the time. You need to have the most perfectly cool. You say, well, you talk pretty plain, brother, but somebody better talk plain. We got homes blowing apart. I'm telling you, blowing apart, folks. And you believe it or don't believe it. And I've been criticized for saying this all over the nation. A lot of men said it ain't true. But I happen to be a man. I happen to have been married to two different wonderful, sweet Christian ladies. And I've talked to a whole lot of other men. I'm going to tell you something. 75% of your happiness depends on your bedroom life. You show me a man that's happy in a bedroom, and I'll show you a man that can lick 3 tigers every morning and greet his mother-in-law with a cheer. That's the truth. You can lie to me every other way, but I'm going to tell you, you can't lie to me about that. You listen, that's the truth. That's the truth. And men, your bedroom ought to be beautiful. It ought to have carpet that you just sink into when you go in. And it ought to have red drapes and a black bedspread, red throw pillows. And it ought to have a big white rug on the floor laying over the carpet made out of fur. And it ought to have music piped in there, soft music. Or you can turn it off in the bed. You don't have to get up and turn it off. Put the switch right by the bed. And then you need 2 big candles, scented candles. And you light them 1 hour before you go to bed. You say, what's that for? All men's feet stink. And that really helps out. That really helps out to light those scented candles, especially if they wear tennis shoes. You need them. Besides that, nobody makes love with a 250-watt light bulb looking in their eye. You know, used to could use a moon, but we live too close together now, and you can't leave your shades up. So you get these candles, and they just sort of flicker. And you get a little fan and turn on so they flicker enough she can't remember just what you look like. It's easier for her to love you. You get this scene all set, you see, like that. And you say, oh, is this godly? You must be. I didn't make the waves to ripple in on the beach. I didn't make the moon to shine across the water. I didn't make the night and bird to make his call. And you hear all that in a love song, don't you? You know what sets the mood for love. And I didn't make it, brother. I didn't make it. You want to know who had the most beautiful bedroom to make love in? That's old Adam and Eve. Man, I'm telling you. And listen. And on your bedroom door, you put a lock, 2 deadbolts, 3 throw latches, and then one of them things you see in them Robin Hood pictures where they drop this big 6x6 into those 2 iron arms like that. There ain't no woman alive that's going to make love to you when she thinks that little boy or girl may bust through the door. A lot of guys say, my wife's frigid. I said, how many locks you got on the door? None. I said, that's it. Man, I mean, how many couples right here this morning, I don't want you to raise your hand, but I mean, just think, how many of you all of a sudden heard, hi, Mommy, and froze? You know it's the truth. And some old maid designed all the houses where all the bedrooms are down there in one little conglomerate. Isn't that sweet? And the woman's laying there like this saying, oh, I wonder if the kids are asleep. Man, if you ever design a home, put the kids way down at one end and you up at the other end. You come to my house, my bedroom 40 feet from there. Listen, let me tell you something. You have to think love. It don't just happen, folks. Not day after day. In high school, I was called Hot Lips Williams. But you know, when I got married, I had to swallow my pride and go to a godly man that I knew and get some counsel. And I had to read me a bunch of good books on how to love a woman. There's a lot of difference in loving a lady every day than there is mugging some girl in the back seat of a car. And you better put down your pride, sir, and go find out some things I had to find out. And some of you ladies need to find out some things. Now, my wife wasn't raised that way. My wife wasn't raised that way. And boy, for the first 6 years, I mean, we had a battle because I was a beast and I was just using her for a tool, and that was it. And I say before God, and she knows it's the truth, and she'll tell you the same thing. If I had not had my mother's love, we'd have never made it. If I hadn't had a love like God gave my mother, our marriage would have never made it. But one day she saw biblical submission. And she said, big boy, if that's what you want, I'll learn to be the best there is at it. And she read every book she could. And you better do the same thing. And you better learn to meet him at the door with a negligee on. And you better learn to hide on the table and say, see if you can come find me. And you better learn some things. You better learn some things. You better learn some things. And sir, you need to learn some things and get you a bedroom like that. And for Pete's sake, get you a king-size bed. In fact, I'm thinking about designing a lover's house, you know. And all that's in the bedroom is a bed. And the walls are right against it. You can't fall off. I mean, I'm just thinking about inventing that. But you know, some of you have got about $100 bed and a $800 couch. And you need to get a $2,000 bed and a $30 couch down at Goodwill. And then company won't stay near as long. And you don't want them to stay anyway if you've got any red blood in your veins. You see, you've got to think love. I mean, you've got to think love. You need to do that. You need to do that. And I just say to you that you need to think that way. Then every couple needs to learn how to kiss. Do you ever watch people kiss? They just fool around. You ever notice that? They act like they're going to wear out their lips. But you won't. You won't. My daddy's 93 years old, got a powerful set of lips. You know, he's on his fourth wife, but he's got a powerful set of lips. You know, you may wear out your wife, but not your lips. You know, I was down there the other day to see him, and my mother died. The other two ladies died with cancer. He and my mom were married 54 years, and she died, and then he married, and she died, and he married, and she died. Now last time he married, he was 82, and she's 81. Now he's 93, and she's 92, and she's got a brain tumor. And he said, I just don't know what I'm going to do if Mary dies. And I looked at him sort of funny, and I said, I do. He said, you don't think I'll marry again? I said, if you find somebody to have you, you will. He said, you know I might. But you ain't gonna wear out your lips. I mean, you ain't gonna do it. You just well to get with the program. I mean, you ain't gonna wear them out. Did you know the largest insurance company in the world took a survey, and the man who kisses his wife goodbye in the morning is 300% safer during the day? That's right. 300% less likely to have an accident during the day. That's the truth. That just shows you the contentment in a kiss, the joy in a kiss. It makes you want to live so you can get back and get another one. You know. And you just you need to learn to kiss. See? Now, there ain't but three kinds of kisses. One is peaches, and the other one is prunes. That's a terrible kind. Now, the third one, man, it is the good one, I tell you. It's the good one. Kissing's my favorite indoor sport. You know, I read everything I can get on it. I give my wife a case of lipstick every Christmas, and I say, give me back that just a little at a time, all year long. Just about Christmas it runs out, and I get her another case. And you know, but I tell you, I was reading the other day where it's healthy. It stimulates your heart. I know it does mine. And you know, and it gives you antibodies if you do the right kind. You know, now if you want to know what the third, it is a good one. If you want to know what it is, you just buy my tapes, and it's on there. All right, good. And you'll like it, I guarantee you. No, I'll tell you what it is. It's alfalfa. Okay. You say, oh, Brother Williams, you don't kiss like that. I do, too. You say, that's a French kiss. No, that's a Jewish kiss. They were doing it thousands of years before the French ever came along. One kid came home from the university, and he said, Brother Williams, did you know that nobody ever kissed on the lips till 300 A.D.? I said, is that right? He said, well, yeah. I said, where'd you hear that? He said, oh, the professor down at the university, he got a Ph.D. in history, said, knows everything. He said, nobody ever kissed on the lips till 300 A.D. I said, if I could show you in the Bible 1,300 years before that somebody kissed on the lips, would you believe it? Oh, yeah. He said, does the Bible talk about kissing on the lips? And I said, uh-huh. He said, show it to me. So I turned over there to the Song of Solomon. Solomon said to his wife, under your tongue it tastes like honey. I said, now, how you think he knew that? I said, you don't really believe he sucked it through her jaw, do you? Now, you know what the truth is? You know what the truth is? I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. We have let Hollywood take and ruin something wonderful. Just like we've let some of these religious people that shout and scream like idiots ruin just a good old amen or a good old praise God from the audience. We've done the same thing with our love lives. We've drug it over in a corner and said it's bad. God said the bed is undefiled. God meant, that's why he made a woman's body pretty. Well, you watch it. I tell you what you do. You watch an animal make love, and I don't mean that we're animals. God knows I don't mean that. But I tell you, they've got love built through them from head to tail. Man, you take an old stud horse, and he'll kiss a mare on the nose and kiss her on the chest and bite all the way down her side and chew on her knees and everything else. You mean he's got more sense than I have? Not on your life, brother. Not on your life. Let me tell you something. You listen to me. You listen to me. And I say all this knowing that people listening to this tape I may be vastly misunderstood. But folks, I'm trying to tell you the truth of what God planned. This is the kind of love God wants you to have. Then you won't go down to the girlies looking for something. You got everything you want in your bedroom, right at home, in your wife and in your husband, if you'll just exercise it. If you'll just learn to do everything inside that bedroom that God made to do inside that bedroom and made it right to do it. If you're married. If you're married. And you ought to have an unusual love for your wife. You ought to take her out to eat. I was so glad when McDonald's came out with that big hamburger. I've eaten in McDonald's so much I've got arches in my back. But you know, I'm glad they came out with fast food. You get home quicker that way. But, you know, uh, they brought out this big hamburger. And you remember the advertisement? Takes two hands to hold it. One of hers, one of mine. I like that. You know, you can go down to McDonald's and go through the drive-thru and get that Big Mac, a big, large Coke, a big fry, get 2 straws, and get out there in the back of the parking lot. It's always dark in those McDonald parking lots out back there. And you can park. Always take your marriage license with you. And then when the patrolman comes up, you just say, yeah, hello there, and hold it up. You know, man, you take a bite of hamburger, and she's holding it with one hand, you holding it with the other, and then you got 2 straws in the same Coke, and you go for a straw and get a kiss. And one of them meals lasts a long time that way. You know, you'll take her out. It don't have to be to the Moulin Rouge, you know. You may not have it $3 or $4, but you can go out. Just get her out. Just make her know she's your sweetheart. She's not mama. Hit him, ladies, next time he calls you mama. And if he don't like it, send it to me and then I'll hit him, all right? Mama. So, well, how are the kids going to learn to say it? They'll learn to say mama. They don't need to hear you saying mama. Ain't that sweet? Mama. My soul. You need to call her honey, lover girl, sweetie pie, sugar lump, baby doll. Don't call her lammy pie. Lambs stink. Don't call her lammy pie. That ain't no favor. But you need to have this little sweet word between you. You know, and then brush her hair. Just sit down in bed and spread your legs open, let her back up to you, and just brush her hair for a little while. Just brush her hair real gentle like. Just get the snarls out real tender like. Talk about the day. Pretty soon you ain't brushing hair anymore. You know, you'd be excited about how nice it is to brush hair. And then you fellas need to learn to bathe every day. It won't wash you off. I mean, honestly, you know, just learn to bathe every day. It won't kill you. And then learn to wear some good smelling stuff. You know, learn to shave every day. You don't have a day off. Saturday isn't your day off. You still on. You may not be at the plant, but you're at home. Shave on Saturday. Bathe on Saturday. You know, and put on some good smell. You say, I don't like wear that stuff. That ain't important. She likes it. Put on 3 or 4 kind. Drastically, she'll pass a zone that she likes. You know, you ladies need to get some perfume and keep your arms shaved. He don't want to swing from arm to arm. You know, keep your legs shaved. He don't want his hand up there and get 3 or 4 stickers in it. You know, just keep your body in shape. Some of you need to lose weight. Some of you are too fat. You need to keep your body where it's attractive to each other and where it smells good to each other. You need to think love. You need to think love. And you need to go in there with the idea we're going to love. Listen, God intended that, folks. And then it's love all day long. You kiss her in the morning. Yeah. I mean, kiss her. Now, I mean, put one on her, you know. I was in one church, and this guy came to me. And, man, he was the saddest-looking fellow I ever saw in my life. And he said, I need to talk to you. I said, all right. So we sit down and talk a little bit. I said, you're an only child. He said, how'd you know? I said, oh, you act like one. And he said, I said, I bet your mama was boss in your house. Yeah, he said, she was. How'd you know? I said, I just figured. And I said, you and your wife don't get along, do you? He said, no, we don't. He said, we just don't get along. Just can't get along. I said, how long been since you just took your wife in your arms? I mean, really took her in your arms, looked her right now and said, I love you. And made her believe it. Oh, he said, he said, I don't do things like that. He said, I'm not the type. I said, you miserable excuse of a man. I said, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to tell you how to love your wife, and you going home and do it, or I'm going to beat the sap out of you. That's what I told him. I meant it, too. I meant it. Man won't love his wife. He said, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." He said, I don't know if I can do that. I said, "You're going to do it." For the next 15 minutes, I instructed him. I said, "Now you got it? You got it? You're going home. Where's your wife?" "She's in the kitchen." I said, "You're going to walk up behind her, spin her around, lay her in your arms and say, I don't know what I've been thinking about, but I love you." I said, "You got that part?" He said, "Yeah, yes, sir." I said, "Where are the kids?" He said, "They're in school." I said, "Good." I said, "Can you pick her up?" He said, "I believe I can." I said, "Then you get her in your arms and you rush down the hall and you lay her on the bed and here's what you do." And I proceeded to tell him. He said, "I'm going to try." I said, "You're going to do more than try. You're going to do it." He left and the preacher came in. He said, "You know what he's talking about?" I said, "He says, saddest case in the country." He said, "He's been in the ministry 4 times and out 4 times." He said, "They just can't get along." I said, "Man, no wonder. No wonder." He said, "Tom, I've never seen that guy sing and I've never seen her smile." That night they came back to church. I tell you the truth, as sure as I'm standing here, he sounded like he was Bing Crosby. And she looked like a donkey that had been out in a briar patch and got some of them caught up under his top lip, just... She came up to me after the service and she said, "Preacher," she said, "I don't know all you told him, but she said it was good." Now, I tell you the truth, they're in full-time service today. Full-time service today. Let me tell you something. There's power in a kiss. There's power in a hug. I mean, you just ought to hug and kiss. Till people think that's all you do. You know what? That'll just turn a lot of women away from you. Because they'll say, "That guy's so happy I'd never get in that home." And they'll say, "Well, that woman's got so much at home, I'd never be able to tempt her." That's the truth. You know where most romances come from that are illicit? They come from loneliness. Loneliness. And brother, you can't get lonely if you do what I tell you. And I'm just telling you what God told you. Yeah. Listen, there's 1,000 other things I could say, but I'm already 15 minutes over. But let me just say to you, have an unusual love. An unusual love. Our Father, I thank you for these 3 hours plus this morning. I thank you for your goodness and your mercy. Thank you for writing the Bible so we'd know what you were like and what you wanted us to be like. Thank you that you laid out a plan for the home, a wonderful plan, a glorious plan, where man is the head, woman is the helpmeet, the children are the offspring, and in harmony and unity it makes a beautiful sound and a wonderful music that fills the courts with laughter and joy. Thank you, dear Father, for the home that you planned. Help us to forget this old world and its thoughts and its cares and its suggestions and just do what the book says. In Jesus' name, amen.